Why won't you just stay in the nest? Stay sitting up. Fine. It's a gag because of the cover page. Okay. More One Piece. Now we're going to find out some of the stuff about what happened at the Reverie. Oda has had us waiting for months, if not years, at this point in time to find out what happened at the Reverie with Cobra and everything. At least now we get some of the information. Okay. So this will be fun. Okay, so chapter 1083 for One Piece. It's called The Truth About That Day, or at least that's the variation I'm working from. Okay, so the cover page, which I just like, it's one of the cover requests, and it's Doflamingo tending to a fallen chick and making a nest with his coat, which... Okay, so the majority of the things that we've seen for Doflamingo is him being a sick, twisted little... words I don't want to say this early in the video, where he's just horrible and manipulative and everything. But the thing is that we've seen instances where he is actually kind somewhat. So this cover page is exceedingly out of the blue. So I know that there's a previous cover page that was like Doflamingo with like a flock of flamingos, and like he let one of them borrow his sunglasses. And then I think that there's also, well, kind of the moment that I wanted to point out a little bit is that we know that, during the time frame when the Doflamingo, family, when the Don Quixote pirates were building themselves up, that, he was very protective of the kids. Yes, it was like, you have to, take care of yourselves for the most part, but he was protective of Baby Five and Buffalo and Law and Dellinger and stuff like that. He was very protective of them because he saw them as his family. And so that's not exceedingly surprising in that regard. And then here it's just like, it's just Doflamingo. It's like, I found this baby bird. Okay, fine. Here, have my coat. Here, have the Band-Aid. It looks like he's gonna put a Band-Aid on the chick. I don't know. I went into the cover page too much. I thought it was cute. Bit of levity before we get into what happened at the Reverie. So into the actual chapter, we pretty much the entire chapter beyond flashbacks takes place on Kamabaka Island, Kamabaka Queendom. And we get to see the castle, which we haven't seen for a while. So we still cut back to where Sabo is talking to Dragon and Ivankov. We kind of see outside where we see like Morley and some of the other ones just having like this party, I guess, celebrating Sabo's return and welcoming in all the people from the Lucia Kingdom that are now there. And we cut to where we see Dragon and Law. That was wrong. Dragon and Law. I don't know, Dragon and Law having a conversation would be pretty interesting, in all honesty. That would be interesting. Where we see Dragon and Sabo and Ivankov having their conversation in what looks just like one of the different rooms inside of the castle. And in the last chapter, it looked like they were outside, but now it's like, no, they're inside. Okay. So we have Sabo saying that they accomplished their three main objectives. One, they by declaring war on the Celestial Dragon specifically, they were able to destroy their symbol, which is this hoof of the dragon thing that we see. That is probably the basis for like all the marks that they put on the slaves and everything that that the Boa sisters have, and that so many of the fishmen had that were former slaves and stuff, and koala that they would have had or do have in certain cases still. And he also states that they were able to, that they rescued Kuma, which is true. We know that happens. We still don't know exactly how that happened, but we know that it did happen. And then he also said that they were able to manage to find and destroy the Marie Joie's food reservoirs. Food reserves, which makes perfect sense that they would have to have food reserves up there on Marie Joie, given the fact of like there's probably not a whole lot of area up there for them to grow their own food. I can think that there might be a few small instances, or maybe there are some things that they grow there, but probably not very much, because I don't know exactly how well like the red line would be good for like growing stuff. And yeah, they have artificial forests, but those are artificial, and they have artificial lakes up there. But so it makes sense for them to want, for them to have food reserves and stuff. Um, and they would have had, stuff that's part of the holy tributes and stuff like that coming to them. Probably a lot of that does contain food. If it's not gold, it's probably food, and such and such. So now they're ready for, now they just have to wait for the fallout to happen, which of course, makes perfect sense. So there's not really much that they, that's nothing, that's not much, that's not nothing to sneeze at, I think is like what Ivankov says, or it's one of them says. Um, Either Ivankov or Dragon says, it was just like, this is the furthest any other previous revolution has gotten. In regards to causing this many problems against the world government, against the celestial dragons. They specifically do say the celestial dragons because Dragon has even stated before that his beef, for all intents and purposes, is not with the world government itself. Like, he likes the idea of like the kings and rulers and stuff like that getting together and being able to discuss problems and things like that. And I don't think he minds the Marines as a whole in regards to like them taking care of, mountain bandits and bad pirates and stuff like that. I don't think he minds that. He just doesn't like that the world government allows for despot and horrible kings to stay in control, like what happened in Lucia and probably what was going on with like Avala Pizarro and stuff like that in whatever country he was from. And of course, he despises the celestial dragons and everything for so many of the things that they do. So, it's just like, this is like as far as any revolution has ever gotten to a degree. And we also find out, Dragon and, Ivankov are like updating Saba on what happened anyway. And, it happened on their own. It was just like, meanwhile, this has triggered uprisings in 12 different nations that the Revolution Army has held strong influence in, and that 8 of those were successful. And Ivankov's like, well, 8 were successful, but one of them was Lelucia, and then it just vanished. Which, Saba was there. He saw that. There was no kingdom named Lelucia, blah, 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 is what's going on with that. I don't know how they're gonna I don't know how the world government's gonna try to get Morgans to spin that Lelucia is gone. But again, we don't know exactly how long, like, newspaper concept, like how long that fully has been around the way that Morgans has done it. So that's for a different video though. So, the headlines were censored and everything, but 7 of the others are still, have declared war as well. They have no intent on paying the tribute and everything like that. And they're not complying with any, with sending out more resources and everything to Marijwa. So that's going to cause issue as well and stuff. And, which makes perfect sense that, they're not like, well, we're at war with you, we're not going to send you more supplies. Why would we do that? You're the ones that keep taking our money and our supplies and resources and everything, and then giving us nothing, type of a thing. And we have all of that. We have, Ivankov also says, like, the Revolutionary Army are attacking different government supply ships and stuff like that are on their way to the world, that are on their way to Marijwa and everything, and stopping those resources from reaching it. Probably also, like, either taking those resources back to the kingdom that they come from, in certain cases, depending on where they are, or possibly bringing them to where the Revolutionary Army is, or something like that, or taking them to other places where they can be useful. I don't think that they would just necessarily sink the supply ships, because that would just, like, ruin all of the supplies that were there. But, stopping them, capturing whatever Marines are there, or at least incapacitating them until they can get away, and blah, 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 that type of stuff makes perfect sense for what the Revolutionary Army would do. They also point out that, they say that Marijwa, that the Holy Land is the high up location on the Red Line, is makes for this impenetrable fortress, which, things that have been explained throughout all of history is that, yeah, you may have an impenetrable fortress, but if you don't have enough supplies, or if you don't have a way of getting yourself supplies, your impenetrable fortress is going to kind of become your tomb, um, in that regard. And particularly if you lock your people inside of there with you, if they don't have the resources that they need, they don't have food, they don't have fresh water, stuff like that, they don't have medical supplies, however it goes, you're going to end up getting an uprising on your hands that way, which countless times throughout history that has shown to be the case. Um, I think that even happens, in different, other types of literature as well, like fantasy literature and stuff like that. There'll be like this, we'll just like, oh, well, just, we'll, barricade ourselves inside of the fortress while, we wait for our other men to come. Well, we're now trapped inside of the fortress and we're running out of food, type of a thing. Um, and Ivankov literally points this out. He's like, yeah, once they're under siege, once they find out what it's like living under siege, maybe they'll finally get a taste of what it's like to live in poverty and go hungry. Um, so we also get Ivankov just looking kind of psycho, um, which is a good look on him. Ivankov can pull off the psycho look very well. Um, so we get that. He's just like really happy. Um, and Sabo's like, yeah, that's what I call a result. I'm like, well, yeah. Um, and Dragon, it's like, Volkov's just like over here being happy. Sabo's like, well, that's good. Dragon's like, okay, so, okay, that, doing all of this is nothing to sneeze at. This is exceedingly amazing and how far that we've gotten. And eventually, and this was like a month ago that the reverie happened, that this chapter is taking place. It's been a month. So it's just like, okay, so we need to figure out what exactly is going to happen with that. What's going to be our next plan of action. And the way that they've set it up so far is, yes, Marie Joie's food reserves has been destroyed, or at least a good portion of it has been destroyed, which is definitely going to cause the Celestial Dragons to get very angry, and is going to make the Gorosei have to make some type of a decision happen and possibly involve Im-sama in there somewhere. Not that they necessarily know about Im-sama, although Sabo does, but we don't get any mention of Im-sama in this chapter. So that might be a next chapter type of a thing, depending on how that goes, considering where this chapter ended. Or it might be a little bit of a different area. We'll see how that goes. But, it's just like, okay. But there's also been some consequences on their side as well, in regards to, it's like, this is all the good stuff that's happened. Now we got to deal with some of the backlash that's happened as well, which, again, makes perfect sense that this type of stuff is happening. So Dragon says that they've now sent out God's Knights, or the Holy Knights, or however you want to put it, and they've mobilized them into battle. And I believe that they state that there is 9 of them. I believe we get like silhouettes of some of them. I know that a lot of people said, oh, some of them have horns. One looks like they have a cowboy hat. One's kind of looks like Shanks, although flipped or something, with the swords on the other side. And I'm like, okay. We get silhouettes of characters. Not like those haven't been changed in the past. It's not like we didn't get silhouettes of the Yonko way back when, Garp first introduced them, and it's not like those didn't change at all by the time we got to Big Mom and Kaido. Not like that didn't change at all in the slightest by the time we saw them. So, there's that. So it's just like, we got silhouettes, but we'll probably get to these Holy Knights a lot quicker than we got to the Yonko after their introduction. So we'll see how that goes. Dragon says that they've been mobilized and sent out to probably deal with all of those different kingdoms. It's probably not going to end up being a good thing. So we'll probably have to see if they send some of the Revolutionary Army to back up these other kingdoms and deal with them that way, and try to see what they can do against the Holy Knights and see how that goes. And then we have Ivankov bringing up he points out that it was like, well, Sabo, you're going to be their main target. You're their number one target, given everything. And it's just like, Mr. Flame Emperor Boy. And Sabo's just like, okay, yeah, I'm not a big fan of the name, but I can't really do anything about that now. That's already been done. Just like, yeah. And then we get into a little bit more of okay, time for some of the more emotional things about okay, so tell us what happened with Cobra's assassination, because, Dragon's like there. He's just like, okay. And he starts like pouring, it looks like wine or something like that for the three of them to drink. And he's just, or it might be scotch or brandy or something. I don't know. It's just like, it starts pouring whatever drink for them. And he's just like, okay, tell us what happened with Cobra's assassination, because the way that it looked like in the news is that you were the one responsible. But you're already a hero enough in the eyes of the world for going up against the world government and everything, that what happened with Cobra isn't necessarily going to hurt your image overall. He says, well, in the eyes of revolutionaries everywhere, you're a hero now. Authority figures within the world government are hated for being subhuman monsters. He's like, well, there's certainly many malignant, power-hungry despots who serve, who deserve that retribution, like what happened with Lucia and probably a bunch of the other kingdoms that were taken over, that were overthrown and everything like that. And it's one thing to get rid of one kingdom. It's another thing for him to sky laser, 8 other kingdoms. But he sent the Holy Knights after them, so we'll see how that goes. But Dragon also points out, so it's just like, we've known that there are a lot of other horrible kings throughout One Piece. We've seen a couple of them in certain cases, the way that Wapol was on Drum Island, to a degree, the way that like Doflamingo was on Dressrosa and everything like that. I mean, there's a lot more nuances in regards to that, but we have those. We have other kings and horrible kings and queens that we've heard about in the series or had some interaction with to a degree. This chapter is actually very good because I'm just about to start a new series of videos on the channel, and I'll get to those in a minute. But he also states that, but when it came to Alabaster, when it came to Cobra, he was in a class of his own. Everyone considered him to be an outstanding sovereign, this amazing ruler. And unfortunately, misinformation spreads far faster than the nuances of what kind of a king Cobra was. And we as an audience have personally seen the kind of king that Cobra was in Alabaster during that arc. We saw the way that he cared about his people, the way that he cared about his daughter, the way that he was willing to do what he needed to try to protect not just Vivi, but his kingdom. He did not want this revolution to happen. He did not want anything like that to happen. And we see that throughout the course of the Alabasta arc. And the video series that I'm going to be doing is a video series where I talk about these different leaders and rulers that we see throughout One Piece. And by leaders and rulers, I mean, yes, like royals and stuff like that, obviously. So like Wapol, Dalton, bunch of Cobra and Vivi, bunch of the other different royals and rulers that we've seen, but also in regards to like the different mayors or governors or however you want to put it, to like Whoop Slap and Boodle and Iceberg on Water 7. So like going through and like talking about a bunch of them and like comparing them as different rulers and like showing their different leading styles. So there's good ones and there's bad ones, and I do plan on doing a series about that. And I think that's going to start next week, given the fact that this chapter just came out, and I'm like, okay, I want to see what I can do with that. Starting with Whoop Slap. So I've been working on the series for a while. I just haven't started on actually recording the videos yet, but now I will. After I get back from like 2 graduation parties and Mother's Day, from my mom. So we get to see, so it's just like, Dragon is basically confirming that like he knew that Cobra was a good ruler and everything. And given the fact that like the Revolutionary Army had Robin with them for a while, and Robin probably would have been able to give them a decent amount of information about Cobra, given how long she was in Alabasta, and she probably would have seen how he was a ruler. So they probably would have gotten some information about him that way from Robin. And then we cut to Sabo, and he's like, this might be cold to say, but while I feel bad for what happened to Cobra, I think I can live with the way this played out if it means, if it helps fuel the flames of rebellion. Which, it's not saying so Saba wanted Cobra to die by any means, but and he knows he didn't cause Cobra's death. Most of us as readers know that that's not something that Saba would do, but for the most part of the majority of the people in the world, that's what they think. So we'll have to find out what happens with Vivi, if she ever ends up interacting with Sabo and finding out there and that type of thing. But um, I think it's dragging because, yeah, you really are unshakable. Yeah, it's just like, and then Ivankov's like, spit it out already. Tell us what happened. Tell us. And Sabo, we cut to see this image in the newspaper of Sabo standing over Cobra. And, it says King Cobra assassinated. And we get a clear shot of Sabo. So either this was something that, like, Morgan's managed to get this picture of himself, and then he, ran the headline and ran the article about everything. And did that with probably some, like, the world government going, you're going to make it look like Sabo killed him. Okay, so the other side of that, so this picture was taken by someone, obviously. It could be that this was taken by Morgan's or by one of his other photographers. Why they would have been in this part of the castle, I don't know. But the other option is that, we know that Cobra goes in to talk to the Gorosei about, what happened in Alabasta and about what happened with, stuff like that with Crocodile and everything. We know that happened after they abolished the warlord system, after him and King Riku talked about that at the Reverie, and the warlord system is just like, yeah, no, we're going to abolish this. And my thought as to what happened is he goes in, he talks with them, they just decide, okay, he's asking too many questions, we're going to get rid of him, and they, I don't know, one of the Holy Knights comes in and ends Cobra, however you want to put that. And then Sabo showed up during part of this, and it may have been that, like, Eam may have somehow been involved in this, because we know that Sabo saw Eam on the empty throne. Don't get to that in this chapter, as I said, but we'll find out what happened with that, hopefully. And what ends up happening, my thought is that the Gorosei either staged this, like Sabo ran in or tried to do something to stop them from killing Cobra, because he knew that Cobra was a good person, and possibly knew about Cobra having a connection to the Straw Hats and everything, again, because Robin probably would have told him about that, depending on stuff. And he ends up getting, they end up getting this picture where it looks like Sabo is the one that took out Cobra. And then they give that picture to Morgan's, and Morgan's is like, ooh, I can use this. And then he just, it's like, we'll give you this picture, and you run the article the way we tell you, with it being that Sabo is the one that killed Cobra. And that I can very much believe as to be what happened. That is how that went. That would not surprise me in the slightest. If they were the ones that was just like, okay, here's what happened. This is a picture, use it in your article, you write this stuff, fine. So that's probably what happened. And then, and that would have been before what happened with Wano, what happened with Kaido and Big Mom falling and Luffy going into his awakening and everything like that. That would have happened before that. So they would probably have been a little bit more wanting to work with Morgan's correctly at that point in time. So that's what we get there. Ivankov's like, we all shed tears over this, desperately trying to find an explanation. So please tell us what happened. We want to believe that you did not do this, but you have to tell us what happened. And Sabo goes into this flashback, and it's like over a month ago at the home of the gods in the Holy Land of Mariejois, not long after the Reverie began. And this is revealed that the Revolutionary Army captains start attacking. We know that Morley, Karasu, and Lindbergh and Sabo were all there on at Mariejois during this when this was going on. They start attacking. And we see within the Holy City itself, not Castle Pangaea, but within the Holy City itself, where the Celestial Dragons live, we see them all running around with like chickens with their heads cut off, running for their lives. And, we get like all these shots of like, oh my God, it's the revolutionaries, and, they blow up the food stores and blah, 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 blah. And, we get, Din Din Muji loudspeaker stuff going on. It's just like, get out of here. It's the Revolutionary Army captains. Get out of here. Run now. We see a bunch of different celestial dragons running around, all of them with the stupid hairstyle. Um, stupid hairstyle. Kind of glad we never got to see Doflamingo and Roshinate with that hairstyle. Kind of glad. Um, I like how they both look like the shorter hair instead of the weird, stupid hairstyle. And we see them all running around. We see the celestial dragons just like screaming and shouting at their slaves, at the other people that are there that are supposed to keep them taken care of. They're yelling about the fact that, oh, they destroyed our beloved symbol and everything, and now they've taken away our exquisite food and everything. And, we get a whole bunch of these other ones just shouting. Some of them I think are female. I mean, generally the way that we've seen the different celestial dragons depicted over the years is that the males tend to be on the more grotesque side in regards to like what we saw with Charlos and stuff like that, whereas the girls, like his sister, tend to be more on the pretty side. But we also get several here that I think look like females, and they're not exactly on the pretty side the way that Charlos's sister is. And just like summon all of those dreadful bodyguards that we have and have them executed and blah 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 blah. They're miserable about all of this. They're not even here protecting us, and they're letting all of this happen and blah 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 blah. How does this happen on their watch and everything? And like they're going to be punished and all of this other stuff that they're yelling about. And one of them we see is riding on their slaves the way that they do, riding on top of like this really old pirate captain is what he looks like. So he looks really old. And he's just like, move, you snail, move faster. My life depends on it. What do you think's going to happen to me and everything? And he just he just gets fed up with this. And this guy kind of looks like a mouse a little bit. He's got like buck teeth and everything for like the celestial dragon. And he's just like, fine, I'll walk myself and everything. And, he's just like, consider yourself fired. He yells at the slave, considering yourself fired, you useless piece of trash. And I think he's about to he's about to kill him. And then like one of Karasu's crows just like flies in out of nowhere and knocks away the gun and, tells, just starts, attacking a bunch of the different celestial dragons, probably knocking away a bunch of the other guns and everything like that. So that way they can't shoot their slaves. And then like one of the crows goes down, lands by this like old pirate captain slave and says, hey, escape to the east of the city and everything. And he's just like, okay. And he's like running off that way. And we see like the different, like the men in black, like bodyguard type stuff start firing at Karasu and everything. And of course, given what we've seen about his power so far, it just like they shoot him full of holes and it like doesn't really do anything. He just seems to like disappear into vapors. And they say something about like getting Saint Plumbing is I think what they called the rat one. I'm like, plumbing? Okay. Pluming, something like that. Pluming sounds slightly more like that would be what they would call themselves, but I'm not sure. Get him out of here, get him to safety and everything. And like Karasu just like kind of seems to like disintegrate. And then he just forms back up again and then just like attacks them. We see like this wispy stuff kind of show up and, by their feet, and then he forms again and then he just like attacks them. And we find out that he has the Soot-Soot fruit. So soot isn't like soot from a fireplace, hence why I have my Soot sprites. Because Soot sprites Miyazaki kid here. Miyazaki kid. Also, I had Spirited Away on the brain because I was talking about that with my niece the other day, who was, when she was born, the day that she was born and we were waiting at the hospital, my mom had got me a bunch of different like VHS. This was back when we had VHS. Well, my niece is going to be 20 this year, I think, something like that, 19, 20, somewhere in that range. Makes me feel old. Being at the hospital, I remember being there and like they had like this TV and like I would watch, I could watch movies on the TV and we had gotten like a bunch of different VHS for me to watch, and one of them was Spirited Away, and that was the main one that I watched while I was at the hospital waiting for my older niece to be born. So now I need to watch the movie with her, although I'm pretty sure I've shown it to her at some point in time. I'm quite sure I have. So that'll be that at some point. But so I have Soot Sprites on the brain because I was talking about that with her the other day. And I also just find it I had the funny image in my head of like just Karasu being like this giant pile of like actually just being like this giant pile of Soot Sprites in disguise, pretending to be a human, and they just like to dress up as a crow and like they use the feathers to turn into crows, and fly away. But he's a Logia. Being soot means that he's a Logia because that is technically like a natural element. It's like ash, that type of thing, like soot from a fireplace. And so him being a Logia makes perfect sense from the other stuff that we've seen him demonstrate with being able to turn into crows and stuff like that, and for being able to like form himself back together. And he got riddled with bullets, so these guys clearly don't know how to use hockey. Or at least if they do, Karasu is good with being able to just like form his body apart around the bullets, kind of the way that Katakuri could. And make it look like he got hit, but he didn't actually get hit, and then make himself fall apart. So we see him turning into these different crows and like attacking them, and like Oblivisoot, I think is the name of an attack that he used, or just makes spites pop up around the guards and like knock them away. So we see that. We see him, and we also see Lindbergh like using his jetpack to like fly through the air and like yell down at the slaves of like, go this way, toward this area. They're, and like shooting at some of the other celestial dragons to make them run in a different direction, and probably shooting at a bunch of the other guards. And I just like, head this way, we'll get you out of here. We got to find the keys and everything like that so we can get you guys to safety. And then we have Fujitora and Aramaki show up. And so they're having to start dealing with them. Karasu and Lindbergh, I think, look like they're having to deal with Fujitora, which he also uses another one that's called Renkon. Is another one of the crow. Renkon is another one that he uses. It's just like he's shooting a bunch of his crows at Fujitora. So, as an audience, we like Fujitora, and given the fact that Fujitora is probably, like if Fujitora was a member of Sword, I don't think that would surprise any of us in the slightest. Not in the slightest, but I don't think so. Or if he is, he's secretly a member of Sword. But also, I would not be surprised if Fujitora. He also mentions that he, at some point in time in this, he's going to summon like a meteor strike to try to like destroy the Revolutionary Army, but that would also probably cause a lot of damage in Marijois, and I don't think that the Celestial Dragons would be exceedingly happy about that. We also see Morley fighting Aramaki. We also see Morley like stab Aramaki with her trident. And it just goes through Aramaki because we've kind of noticed that Aramaki, again, Logia isn't all that affected by that type of stuff, so that's not too surprising. They're shouting and everything. They're just like, you're here, you're the ones destroying the city and everything like that. And Morley's just like, ooh, you like to play rough, don't you, boy? And Aramaki is just like, oh, good God, no, no. I am perfectly fine with Aramaki suffering because I don't like him. I like his power. He's got an interesting design. Him as a human being is a horrible person. Given what we saw, the way that he acted at Wano, and this is technically happening pre-Wano, so yeah. It's just like, you're just gonna, you're causing enough, you're causing so much devastation, just tell us where your leader is, blah, 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 blah. And it's just like, I think they're referring to Sabo at that point in time, because I know that Sabo's there as well. So we see a bunch of that stuff. We see them, the celestial dragons keep getting like knocked away, and they're just like, you let us get hurt, Aramaki, so I'm gonna have you punished, and blah 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 blah, and like yelling at them and all of this. And Fujitora is like, I'm gonna call down a meteor strike, and it's just like, how about we don't do that? How about we not call down a meteor strike? That does not sound like a wise decision. Mr. Blind Man with a Sword. And really good observation, Hockey. So we have that. And then we cut to what is it that it says? It's like we've got two admirals here dealing with stuff. Um, what does it say? If we were anywhere else but here, we would be able to be a lot more devastating because the admirals don't want to cause a whole lot of damage within Marie-Joie, which, given the fact that they technically work, as Garp has stated, they kind of seem to work more directly for, the Celestial Dragons, that makes sense that they, wouldn't want to cause a whole lot of problems there. Also, we know that Aramaki very much believes in the whole Celestial Dragons being divine and everything like that. So that makes sense. Fujitora probably doesn't care quite as much because he probably does not like the Celestial Dragons and the fact of what he's seen happen with the world, or in the case of reasons why he blinded himself. But of course, Morley, Karasu, and Lindbergh do not care about causing damage to Marie-Joie. That is literally the reason why they're there, is to declare war on the Celestial Dragon. So that is not anything that they're worried about in the slightest. We would be able to handle this. And then we see a panel where we see a bunch of characters we haven't seen for a while, and we finally get an update on them. Well, two of them we got an update already on in Film Red. So we get to see the other former members of CP9. So we get to see Khalifa and Blueno, who we already saw in Film Red. So we already knew that they were members of CP IG0. But we also see Jabra, Fukuro, and Kumadori as well. So we get to see them. And they're just, time to go and deal with other stuff or whatever, I think is like where they're headed. And they all seem to be in like the white uniforms, and it might have been like they were doing some fighting as well, or maybe they just showed up and everything. So they're probably there to try to help deal with stuff. As I said, we saw Khalifa and Blueno in Film Red, so now it's fully confirmed that the other ones are there as well, which makes sense. So then we cut to where, we have, Karasu says something about like, we need to get the collars for the keys for the collars that are on the slaves, because of course those are the exploding collars and stuff. We have to find out where they are. I'm sure that some of them would, okay, so I wouldn't be surprised if some of the members of the Revolutionary Army, specifically Dragon, if he would be able to, do kind of like the Ryuo stuff that Rayleigh could, and that Luffy can do now with like breaking off the collars and everything like that. That wouldn't be surprising. I don't know if any of the others, maybe Sabo might be able to. I don't think the collars can be melted. But since Sabo has his fire powers, that would make sense if he would be able to just melt them and get them to bend off and get them over, take them off of the person. But they probably, because that would take a long time to do that for all of the different slaves, so they need to get the collars and everything. But this is also very reminiscent of what happened with Fisher Tiger, and when he scaled the red line and caused all of this destruction and caused, allowed a bunch of the different slaves to escape, including the Boa sisters and Koala and a bunch of other ones. So this is a reminiscent thing of that. So this is kind of like a bit of a full circle thing where Sabo, who's Koala, is basically like his best friend, along with Hack, that, now he's here helping cause a whole bunch of this problems and everything. And that, the Revolutionary Army are there now being able to, free a bunch of these slaves. So I like that little full circle type of a thing. And at some point, Koala will probably get told about some of this stuff. So Sabo looks like he's at Castle Pangea, and he's there trying to find out where Kuma is. And he says, well, I found Kuma. He's in Castle Pangea, and he's here with that dumb father and son saint duo, Roswald and Charlos, and everything. And it looks like they're still focused on getting Shirahoshi, because we see Charlos after he's been bandaged up, and Roswald's still riding on the back of Kuma, and Charlos is just like, I'm gonna get my pet mermaid type of a thing and stuff. So it's not like he'd stop after just one try of trying to get her. Of course he wouldn't. Sabo's like, I won't forgive them for what they did to Kuma-san. And, I'll get Kuma and I'll get the keys for the cuffs and everything like that, so we can get the slaves free and all of that. And we see this little bit where we have this flashback where we have Shirahoshi, like when she's holding it would be Mansheri, like after Mansheri healed her after the incident with Charlos and everything. Just like, I won't let them get away with this, morally, make sure everything is ready and everything so that way they can get them. We also see a panel of Bonnie where we see her running around trying to get to Kuma. And such. So technically we got a Bonnie update in this chapter, but it's not a current update. But we see her running around, and then we cut to where the last page of the chapter, last scene of the chapter, where we have Vivi talking with Lucci. And she's just like, can't you just buzz off already? I'd rather have Vice Admiral Garp's help, with anything else that's going on right now, which she's probably figured out that he's Luffy's grandfather at some point in time. That's been already explained, and she possibly watched what happened with Ace because she met Ace on Alabasta. She probably watched happen at Marineford and everything, so she probably knows that everything. And Rayleigh, Lucci's just like, yeah, don't worry, we'll protect you. And she's like, yeah, like you protected Shirahoshi. Oh wait, you didn't. I love Vivi's sass. Vivi is awesome. I love Vivi. Go Vivi. And it's just like, and that creep's definitely going to target her again, she points out. So I'm assuming, I'm trying to figure out what's going on here, because we know that Lucci was, Vivi had tried to stand up to Lucci and everything that happened in the courtyard with Shirahoshi and everything, with Charlos trying to get Shirahoshi. And Lucci was just ready to allow Charlos to be able to take Shirahoshi. Vivi, of course, did not want that to happen because Shirahoshi's her friend, and just in general, even if she hadn't met Shirahoshi or really even been introduced to her, she still would be angry about what was happening, because that's just the type of person that Vivi is. And now she's like sassing Lucci, and I love it. Oh wait, you didn't protect her. Type of a thing. And Lucci's just kind of standing there like, I don't know if he's like waiting for something to happen. I don't know if he's told to go and do something. I don't know if he's like getting information about what's going on with like the others, Marie Joie being attacked by the other ones, if that's why he's here to protect her. I don't know. Probably was sent to watch her by the Gorosei while they deal with Cobra, so that way they know where Vivi is if something happens. They can try to keep Vivi there as a hostage, is probably my thought. So then we cut to where we have Cobra, Pell, and Chaka, and Cobra is getting ready to go in and talk with the Gorosei. And we have like the guards, I guess, are just like, we're afraid only King Cobra can be permitted an audience with the 5 elders. And they're just like, but these are king. And Cobra like, cough, cough. No, it's fine, Pell, Chaka. It's fine. It won't be long, and it'll be very tedious and probably quite boring and everything. And, we see Cobra in his wheelchair and everything. And, just like, just make yourselves use a bit of your time and go look after Vivi. Go take care of her. She's always been a mischievous one, and you can't let her out of your sight for a second. I'm like, said the man who let her disappear for 2 years to go and become a spy. So, and that's the end of the chapter. There's no break next week, so we'll get another chapter next week, and we'll see how this goes. So my thoughts as to what's going to happen is that Lucci is probably there to keep an eye on Vivi, and probably sent there by the Gorosei on Eam's orders to keep an eye on Vivi. My thought as to what is going to happen is, Cobra's going to go in, talk with the Gorosei, probably going to ask some questions he probably shouldn't, and they're going to end up taking him out. They're going to frame Sabo for it, give the picture to Morgans, however that would go, and then would end up being, Cobra sent Pell and Chaka to go and keep an eye on Vivi. They probably get there. When whatever happens with Cobra happens, if that's, shouted all around the reverie and everything at that point in time around Marie Joie. Then Pell and Shaka would probably do what they can to try to protect Vivi from Lucci. But as much as I like Pell and Shaka, we all have our issues with Pell. Him as a character, I don't mind. Just what happened is more the issue, and him, everything that happened there with Alabaster and the crocodile's bomb. But they'll probably try to protect Vivi, and my thought is that via certain coercion, Vivi's going to end up having to get Wapol to get her with Morgans, and then that's how they're going to escape. And then, that's what's going to happen there, is my thought. But I wanted to make a comparison on this one real quick before I head off. So the cover page is this celestial dragon, this former deposed celestial dragon in regards to, Doflamingo and everything. And he's helping this little bird that's in a nest. I don't have an actual feathered coat, and even if I did, I don't have one that's pink, so I had to use a red feathered boa that I bought in New Orleans. And then I have a picky pecky because I didn't have any other birds. Surprisingly enough, for all the stuffed animals that I have, I think that was the only stuffed bird that I have that wasn't like a pigeon or a dove or a peacock. But yeah, surprisingly enough. But in regards to that, so it's like we have this celestial dragon, former celestial dragon, like taking care of this little injured bird. And then I like the fact that in the chapter, Karasu is using his soot powers to have all of these like crows, like just like terrorize the celestial dragons and stuff. And just like, I just found that really funny for some reason. Don't know why, I just found it exceedingly funny. Just like, well, now I'm going to turn into a crow and like just cause a whole bunch of havoc. Okay. Sometimes I know Oda plans stuff in the cover pages to be representative of something that's going to happen in the chapter. I don't know if this was 100% planned, but I still find it funny. So that's what we have. I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I rambled in there a little bit about Spirited Away, but what can I say? I love Spirited Away for various reasons. And we'll find out what happens with Cobra. That's going to be, because there's two sides of this flashback. We're going to have part of the flashback that shows stuff from Sabo's point of view and stuff that's going to show it from Vivi's point of view. And also kind of like a neutral third perspective where we get some stuff that maybe neither of them saw. So we'll see what happens. My other thought is that Sabo maybe tried to save Cobra, and then that's where they got the picture, or like he found Cobra and they staged it that way to get a picture of Sabo or one of the revolutionaries near Cobra to make it look like they're the ones that took him out. And then they gave that picture to Morgans. That would not surprise me in the slightest if that was what they did. So that's what we have. I thank you for watching. I hope you have a nice rest of your day. I have like a graduation party to go to this weekend and a birthday party and Mother's Day. And then next weekend, I got to go to another graduation party for one of my cousins, different cousin. And so I'm going to have a bunch of busy weekends with a lot of driving. So that'll be fun. So the congratulations to any of the graduates that are out there. So thank you. Bye. And happy Mother's Day, but there'll be a video on Mother's Day as well. It'll be a Bleach Mother's Day one, so that'll be that as well. So bye!